Good evening. I'm the Maven of the Eventide. Welcome to Vampire Reviews. Get the point? Tonight, we discuss Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
In every generation, there is a chosen one.
No, not that Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Fran Kazooie and Joss Whedon's 1992 original film. When I was a wee little maven at the age of 12, I went on a church retreat to the snowy California mountains. And there, as part of our Bible study, the youth leaders had us watch Buffy the Vampire Slayer. After the movie was over, we had a group discussion about the teachings we learned regarding prioritizing values and how they apply to the Christian way of life. Buffy is a story about a vapid, selfish bimbo who learns how to be a hero.
Excuse me for not knowing about El Salvador, like I'm ever going to Spain anyway.
And Jesus approves! Even though the much more successful TV series shared the same creative minds as the movie, they say that Joss Whedon hated what was done with his script and stormed off the set after repeated conflict with the producers and actors. He was so disappointed with the film, in fact, that later on his original screenplay was adapted into a comic to set the record straight and retcon the origin of Buffy to align with the TV series.
What's your name?
Buffy.
Christy Swanson is our Buffy in this standard unlikely hero tale. Picture this. Who would be the least likely person to be the badass vampire hunter? The weakest girly girl, of course! I see what Joss Whedon was going for when he created this concept, and I think it's pretty sweet. He took the notion of the usual first victim in a horror movie cliche standard plot.
They're all the same. Some stupid killer stalking some big-breasted girl who can't act, who's always running up the stairs when she should be going out the front door. It's insulting.
Yeah, that one. And had that character instead turn out to be the chosen one.
God, scared me to death.
This wasn't the first time we'd seen the least likely person in high school be destined to be a superhero, but it was the first time it was done with a girl. In the 90s, we saw quite the increase of hot action ladies, and Buffy had the honor of being one of the first on board with the trend. I would go so far as to say that the ground broken by Buffy helped pave the way for the likes of Alice and Lara Croft and Celine. These aren't gritty, tough ladies who managed to largely avoid being defined by their sexuality like Ripley and Sarah Connor. These girls are sexy and they know it. Predecessors were rare in either villains, female counterparts to male heroes, only of sidekick or group status, or the emphasis on their femininity was negligible. There are really only a couple Western exceptions I can think of. And why is it that since the Charlie's Angels era, most ass-kicking female heroes have been stuck in a sci-fi fantasy ghetto, mainly fighting supernatural creatures? Or other women? They never just fight dudes. There are exceptions, of course, but how many Western examples can you name? And I would say that this Buffy holds the crown of being the girliest of them all.
Yay gum.
If you would define girliest as vapid and shallow. I mean, her version of Spidey sense for when vampires are near are menstrual cramps. No, I am not kidding about that.
It was a natural reaction on the part of the Slayer.
It's like the writers were thinking, what's the girliest girl thing that girls feel that we can use? Her girls get periods. And this was directed by a woman. I guess Joss Whedon learned his lesson about that, considering it doesn't exist in the TV show and it's not mentioned once in the comic book version of the script. But anyway, it's the juxtaposition that's cool, and the movie does a lot to help enforce the theme. For instance, there's the effeminate basketball coach.
This again today. I think you better sit down and think about how that made me feel.
The completely unperceptive guidance counselor.
Happening dude who can talk to the young.
Oh, hello, Stephen Root. You get to be a vampire later.
Oh, you're so bad.
And the fact that, instead of a ditzy blonde, the first of Buffy's friends to die is the nice, smart girl who looks like she's the most likely to live.
Besides, Sting's doing it.
What is doing Indians? How about the homelessness?
Can I just take a moment to say that, as someone who went to high school in the LA area where I was one of only 6 white girls in my entire senior class, I have to ask, what kind of Los Angeles high school is this that there's basically only one non-white student? And don't tell me it's some kind of snooty prep school or something, because just look at Clueless.
Like Shawana. See, I'm outie. Bye.
Why do you gotta go there?
This is a really good school. Hello.
Speaking of which, let's take a moment to compare Clueless to Buffy.
Please, so 5 minutes ago.
What? I never said I actually liked this movie. Why is Clueless, also a film about vapid teenage girls learning their priorities, good, and Buffy bad? Well, for one thing, Clueless loves what it mocks, and it trusts its audience to understand that even though it portrays teenage girls as shallow and foolish, they're still humans with hopes and dreams and feelings.
Oh, you guys. What do you think about the ozone layer?
The Buffy movie clearly hates teenagers, and none of the supporting cast have any kind of character arcs. The selfishness is so cliche and over the top that the audience couldn't be invested in them if they had to.
Sandra's body in the hills.
I know, it's been there for weeks, all icky. She still had my jacket.
The yellow leather? You didn't get that back from her?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I love that jacket.
Look at her sucking that blow pop. It's schoolgirlish. That makes her sexy. Pff, well, I have two, and that makes me doubly sexy. Right? In typical hero's journey formula style, Buffy first receives and denies the call to action, but then a wise mentor helps her find the path and she begins the journey to achieve her true potential. It's Star Wars / Karate Kid / Hercules all over again, right down to the training montage. She's a cheerleader and former gymnast, so the fact that she can do all this fighting isn't as difficult to swallow, but supposedly her latent superpowers manifest now that she's been called to duty. And she's not afraid to show it. She flips everywhere she goes. Really, why couldn't she just walk over there? Extra physical exertion just because she can. What kind of person would do that?
Hey, Lisa, would you pass the remote?
Our Mr. Miyagi / Yoda here is Merrick. Ah! No, not that Merrick! Played by Donald Sutherland. Who, from what they say, pissed off Joss Whedon so much that they are so off each other's Christmas card list. He appears out of nowhere one day as the vampire epidemic begins in order to recruit and train Buffy as a new chosen one in a long tradition of slayers. Supposedly, he's been doing this all his life and in all his past lives and has lived to see every girl he's trained die. That's reassuring. Let's take a look at our vampires. Most of the vampires in this film are recently turned former schoolmates of Buffy, so they're all young and hip and snappy dressers. They're recruited by Amelin, right-hand vamp to our big bad Lothos, played by Rutger Hauer. Lothos. One of these things is not like the other.
I want to dance.
Well, he's classy. Look, he wears spats and plays the electric violin without it needing to be plugged in.
Me in my chamber. Maybe a little snack.
And you wonder why Anne Rice imagined him as the perfect Lestat. Lothos has been asleep for an undetermined amount of time and is now ready to wake up because he feels like it. And so Amelin is creating a legion to be ready for his return, whereupon they will take over the world or something. It's vague. Why has he been asleep? What put him in that state and how long has he been that way? Supposedly he's killed every single slayer he's ever encountered. So if he's never lost, why isn't he already ruling the world? And why wake up now? It's mentioned that the shallow decadence of the times is alluring to him, and yeah, it's 1992. The era of Valley Girls must surely be tempting to ancient evil. But were the 80s not decadent enough for you? The 70s? Anyway. Vampires in this world can fly and mesmerize with their eyes, but they don't seem to be otherwise particularly strong or powerful. Amelin's able to punch through the roof of a van, but then they seem an equal match for a tussle with a teenager. Buffy's unlikely sidekick and love interest Pike is able to kill them almost as easily as she does. He even rips off Amelin's arm through his roof. Really? This guy's been one of the badassiest badasses for centuries, and this loser gets his arm? I was waiting through the entire movie for Amelin's arm to grow back, but never does. It's just gone. If it was that easy and permanent, how is it that Luke Perry is the first one to ever get it? And yes, since I know you're all thinking it, Amelin here is played by Paul Rubens. He has a knack for playing big villains totally unmenacing sidekicks. And unmenacing is the key word here.
Aren't there times when you just feel less than fresh?
The portrayal of vampires in this movie is my chief problem with it.
You stupid little bitch!
Go, team, go.
If you compare them to the much darker interpretation in the comic, you can see that the filmmakers clearly did not care about the tone of the movie. I know it's supposed to be a bit of a parody of cliche horror movies, but how can you expect an audience to be invested in the story if the threat is so laughable that there are no tension or stakes? They didn't even care enough not to include Ruben's completely improvised death scene. That's not funny. That's embarrassing. There is a way to do parody well, but this is just cheap. Frankly, I'm surprised the vampires didn't have any fart jokes. Anyway, Buffy has recurring dreams about her past lives as previous slayers encountering Lothos, and then finally meets him herself.
She's not ready for you, Lothos.
What does that mean? Did you expect him to be like, oh, okay, sure, you're right, it's not a fair fight, I'll just wait till you finish training her and then come back and kill her like I've killed all the others? Well, Merrick sacrifices himself so that she can escape. In the movie, Lothos kills him, but in the original script, we see that he shoots himself instead, which is so much more dark and moving, and the cinching difference between the characters written and how Sutherland portrays him. That, and the fact that he rewrote most of his dialogue, I'm not surprised that Joss Whedon publicly called him a dick. This is one of several examples of where, even though she's the Slayer with the superpowers, Buffy still needs to be rescued by a man in a dire situation. Now, I don't mean to get all feminist on you, but just look, it's Pike who saves her ass first at the fairground. Merrick intercedes here, and then at the end, again, it's Pike who somehow kills most of the vampires in the gym.
I'm going to the
After
dance.
Merrick's death, Buffy has a brief lapse in her priorities and decides to go to the school dance, despite Pike's efforts as her shoulder
When here
angel.
the world is under attack by legions of the undead, you're going to a mixer.
Aw, he even shaves off his soul patch and sideburns for her as a symbol of his growth and maturity.
I'm out of here. Jenny! Jenny!
But once again faced by the foils that are her awful, awful friends, she comes around. Buffy and Pike fight off the vampires as they break into the dance, and she goes out to confront Lothos.
You and I, look at me. You and I are joined.
She manages what no other Slayer has and escapes him with the help of hairspray. Buffy is successful at killing Lothos and stopping all the vampires because of how different she is. Her lack of formal training lets her natural talent shine through in new ways. This makes her unexpected. And so it's due to the very things that we identified as bad character traits that she's able to win.
Please.
And I like that she doesn't have to completely abandon her Valley Girl personality in order to become a hero.
Oh yeah? Clap. You're obviously having a bad hair day.
The movie doesn't try to tell us that being hip is wrong. The moral is that it's not bad to care about fashion sense, it's just about how you use it. Buffy is able to find the balance between what builds her spunky personality and serious moral priorities. And although I genuinely consider this a bad movie, my issues with it have to do with the film's tone and how my poor vampires are portrayed.
Trust me!
And not with the character of Buffy herself. This is validated by the fact that she, as a character, is one of the only things that really bridged the movie to the TV show. And we all know what a phenomenon the show became while the movie practically fell into obscurity. And that's Buffy the Vampire Slayer. And if nothing else, it will always serve to teach morality lessons to 12-year-old church girls. If you're a shallow bitch, vampires will slaughter everyone you care about. Be nice. I wish these tasted like blood. Good evening. Again, hi. I'm the Maven of the Eventide, and I made this video 5 years ago. Yeah, it's been that long, but I am making new videos now with the help of Patreon, and I could really use your support. So if you'd like to see more videos from me, please consider supporting me on Patreon. The link is in the description or up here, and I am taking special requests for certain reward levels. And if you join my Patreon, you get to see my videos before anyone else does, exclusive preview. So consider joining my Patreon. I'd really appreciate it, and be one with the night.